back, welcome to another video, and welcome to another wonderful product of nature. Today's product is an herb. The name of this herb means healed or saved, designating its therapeutic effects. And actually it was recorded in a medieval saying, why should someone die if they have it planted in their garden? With its unique relation to mental health, let's talk about the powerful sage. Sage is an herb. It's a small bush. I have it here. It loves the sun. It blossoms in the spring. And it's important to know when herbs blossom, because when they blossom, this is when they are at the peak of their strength. And this is where it's advisable to gather them and dry them and have them throughout the year. Among all the herbs, this is probably the strongest herb that we know. And actually in the 9th century AD, the Chinese used to trade in large amounts of Chinese tea in order to get back a small portion of sage. It is known more for its therapeutic, medical, and nutritional value rather than its culinary herbal use. Therefore, perhaps this is why it's more consumed as a tea and less seen in recipes. So let's take a closer look at this powerful herb. Okay, so this is a small leaf from the sage. Sage has thick, velvety leaves. Of course, like any other product of nature, it comes in different varieties. So we also find sage which is a little bit lighter with a smaller leaf. But let me show you here my beautiful sage. There's different varieties of it, but the scent of the herb is the same. Now this here is fresh sage. You can buy it when it's available, and you can use it in food or you can use it to make tea. And this here is dry sage. Now when we dry sage, because the leaf is so thick and velvety, the stem is also thick, and it really makes a lot of sense to dry it together with the stem and not just the leaves. If we're talking about a more delicate leaf like with the basil or mint that have very delicate leaves, then we only take the leaves and the stem is not really dryable, if I can use this term. But with sage, because it is thick, it's worthwhile keeping the stem when drying it. There is a long history for the use of sage, and actually you find it in the Egyptian, Roman, and Greek medicine, and we even find it in the Native American healing traditions. And some of these traditions actually last until this day. One tradition is sage smudging. And what is sage smudging? Basically, it's burning sage. And here we're talking about the effects of sage on a different dimension. Sage has been used for centuries for cleansing the atmosphere, cleansing spaces. And actually today we find all kinds of things like candles, like incense, that have their base as sage. It's used for protecting, for healing on an energetic level. So what you do is just take a dry leaf like this one and put it in a mug or an old pot or a clay pot and burn it. You burn it, you leave it in there, and these fumes come out that are cleansing fumes. And because other than the fact that they're used for removing bacteria from the air or repelling insects, sage is considered to improve intuition, purify objects and spaces, rooms, and it also improves mood and reduces stress and anxiety. And here I have some incense. This specific one is made by priests actually, with prayer for prayer. And this is why we find incense based on sage used in churches during service. And actually the Romans referred to it as the holy herb. Great. So other than this, how beneficial is sage for us when we consume it? Sage is quite beneficial, and actually it's among the strongest, if not the strongest herb that we know of. And as we mentioned before when we talked about oregano, for example, the herbs and the spices fit both in the kitchen cabinet as well as the medicine cabinet at home because they have therapeutic effects. Now, sage has a lot of benefits. First of all, it's an antioxidant, so it has a lot of vitamins and minerals. It's anti-inflammatory, it's antibacterial and antiviral. It also decreases symptoms of menopause, but its main function is related to mental health. Its uses and its benefits in mental health include protection against memory loss, it improves mood, it reduces anxiety, but mainly there have been many studies that show that the active components of sage protect against neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's. So we have a pretty strong herb here, and a very useful herb that nature is providing us with. Now, as far as calories goes, of course, it's an herb. About a teaspoon is 2 calories, so it's not even an issue to worry about. So how can we include it in our everyday lives or in our nutrition in general? As we said earlier, sage is very known for its therapeutic effects, and this is why that it's only until later when the French introduced it as tea. So this is what I want to show you today. I want to show you first of all how to dry herbs, and then I'll show you how to make tea out of herbs. Now, for drying herbs, you take leaves of sage. You can take a bunch, it's advisable if you want to have it for the entire year, then take quite a lot of it. You put it in a colander and you rinse it with cold tap water. You want to rinse it because you never know, there may be some very small insect or definitely dust on it. So give it a good rinse under the tap, cold tap water, not lukewarm, not warm, and certainly not hot water, because you're going to have tea right there in your sink and it goes against the purpose, so you don't want that. After you wash it, you let it drain, and then you take the herb, in this case the sage, and you spread it on a flat surface, on a piece of towel preferably. You can put a thick piece of cloth, preferably a towel, and you put it there and you leave it in a shady corner indoors. The next day you remove it and you flip the towel, or you put a new towel because it's probably going to be wet, and you lay them on top again and you leave them for several days. Now, with sage, you need, of course, more days because it's thick, velvety. Mint or basil may need about 3 to 4 days until the leaves dry. With sage, because it's thicker, it may need up to 10 or 12 days. And when we say dry, we mean cracking dry, okay? Like when you take a leaf and you can actually shrivel it, okay? Don't be tricked by the fact that the leaves may curl and you think they're already dry. If you're not sure, leave them for a couple of days more. No harm in that. But make sure they are really, really dry. Otherwise, if you take them off too early and you store them in a container, after a while they're going to rot. That's what's going to happen. So there can't be any water in the leaves or the stem. Now let's talk about how we make tea. First of all, we never boil the leaves or the herbs with the water. You boil the water separately, and then you pour it over the leaves, whether it's fresh or dry leaves, it's the same. Now here for this size teapot, I'll be using like a good full 1 teaspoon of dry leaves. A heaped teaspoon, or 1 tablespoon. So remember, sage is a strong herb, and we put it in the teapot or the glass, whatever you like, and you pour the hot water on top of it. Could be boiling water, but don't boil the herb. All right. Okay, different teas need longer or shorter time. If you are very picky about that, you can look into that. But more or less, herbs need about 5 minutes. So after 5 minutes, the tea is done. And if you leave it longer, it's just going to become stronger, more concentrated. Now we're going to see what happens with the sage and what result we're going to have here in 5 minutes. Okay, so 5 minutes have gone by, and actually I left it a little bit longer. Let's see. Okay. I don't know if you can see it, I hope. It's a very, very light yellow color. This is the color that sage will bring out initially. As you leave it, it becomes darker and darker very fast and more bitter. So this is the initial color. It goes very well with honey and lemon. And you can choose the honey of your liking. If you watch our video on honey, you can make your choice of honey in accordance to the herbs that you want to drink. It's very strong. If I leave it, even without leaves, it's going to become darker. But with the leaves, if you leave it, it will become darker and more bitter, designating its therapeutic effect. It has a wonderful aroma. And it's interesting how it has a very, very delicate aroma, which is more delicate than any other herb, but at the same time, its effect is a lot stronger. So, what's it to remember about sage? Sage is an herb. Please do include it in your nutrition. You don't have to include sage specifically every day, but please do include herbs every day in your diet. And at the end of the day, just ask yourself, have I included herbs today in my diet? Because they are very therapeutic, and it's very easy to keep after you dry it. Sage can last up to 3 years, so you can put it in a container. And remember, the closer we are to nature, the healthier we are. This is the end of this video. If you like the content, then please click the subscribe button, which is underneath the video, so that you can be notified of every new video that comes out. Join our Facebook group, where we have our discussions and have your questions answered. Take a look at Pinterest and Instagram, where we have some beautiful photos of all the products that we talk about. And thank you for being with us, and see you next time.